Hey everybody, welcome to another homework review. This time we're reviewing some exercises from section 12.4 having to do with range and standard deviation. Range we're pretty familiar with, but we haven't done standard deviation yet. They give us a set of data values and they tell us compute the range and compute the standard deviation. Okay, first things first, we'll do the range. And when we compute the range, what do we have to do with the data values first? Do you remember? When we compute the range, we have to list the data values in ascending order, least to greatest. So let's do that first. Here we go. List them in ascending order. So I have to find the smallest data value, 58, 58, 58. 58 is the smallest data value and it occurs 3 times. 58, 58, 58. Okay, let me cross these jokers out. What's the next smallest value? Looks like we only have one value left that's less than 100, right? So 80 is our next data value. And we'll cross that out. And we have 1, 2, 3 values in the hundreds. 100, 103, 109. Okay. 100, 103, 109. Let's cross those guys out. And I'm left with 210 and 250. Now, let me just make sure I did things right. I have all the data values crossed out here. So it looks like I've used them all and put them in proper order. But let's see, when I started, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 data values. Is that what I have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Looks like I did this correctly. And the range is the greatest data value minus the least data value. The biggest data value minus the smallest data value. Oh, and we don't have to divide by anything here. Forgive me, I'm on autopilot. The greatest is 250. The least is 58. So it looks like our range is 192. And next we go to standard deviation, or at least that's where we think we're going. Okay, here's how we compute the standard deviation. It's represented as a lowercase s, maybe for standard, I don't know. And what we have to do first of all is compute the differences of each data value minus the mean, square it, add them up, and then divide by the number of data values minus 1. But did you notice this? The first thing that we need is the mean, and we don't have that yet. So that is our first order of business. Before we can get to the standard deviation, we got to compute the mean. We thought this was going to be easy, huh? Okay, first order of business, compute the mean. We add up all of our data values and divide by the number of data values. I'll just take the rearranged order of the data values and add them up and divide by 9. And if I calculated this correctly, oddly enough, I get a whole number. X bar is 114. That's the mean. That wasn't what we were looking for, but it's something that we need in order to get what we're looking for. See, we need X bar. Now, what do we have to do next? We have to take the difference of each data value with X bar and square it and add them all up. Okay. Okay, for each of our data values, we computed X, the data value, minus X bar. And remember, X bar, our mean is 114. So here's data value 58 minus the mean 114. Data value 58 minus the mean 114. Data value 58 minus the mean 114. Data value 80 minus the mean 114, and so on and so forth. Now, the next thing that we have to do in order to do our standard deviation formula is square this son of a gun. Take X minus X bar and square the son of a gun, and here's what we get. Okay, everybody, we took each difference of X, data value X, minus X bar, and squared it. So for the difference of each data value in X bar, we have the corresponding square. We wrote them all down here. Now, what do we do next? We got to add these things. Can you believe that? We got to add up the squares of the differences between the data values in X bar. So I'm going to compute those and see what those come up to. By the way, use your calculator too, just to make sure that you're getting exactly the same thing that I do, okay? So don't just take my word for it that these are right. Use your own calculator and make sure you get the same thing. Okay, we added all of these things up. Here's what we got, 38,618. The sum of the squares of X minus X bar, 38,618. Now, what do we have to do next? And we're saying, oh my goodness, you mean I'm not done yet? We're not. Okay, the next thing that we have to do is to take this number, the sum of the differences of the squares of each data value minus X bar. We have to take this number and divide by the number of data points minus 1. So that's the next thing we do. Next, take this thing, the sum of the differences of the squares of each data value minus the mean. Take this thing and divide it by the number of data values minus 1. Now, if you remember, we had 9 data values. So n is 9, and we're going to subtract 1. And holy moly, do I have that figured out? Oh, please tell me I do. Ooh, I don't. Oh well. And I don't have a calculator with me either. Well, anyway, we do have this, not quite the numerical value, but this is what it is. 38,618 divided by 8. Next, we have to take the square root of this monstrosity. And thank goodness I did have the presence of mind to compute the square root of this earlier. 69.4784. And we're almost done, but guess what? Remember, these were dollar values. The data values were dollar values, and I left off the dollar signs because they'd just be a nuisance. What this really is, the standard deviation, is $69.4784. And here's what they say. What do they say? Round the final answer to the nearest cent as needed. Okay. To the left of the decimal point, these are dollars. To the right, these are cents. 47 cents. We're supposed to round the answer to the nearest cent. So here's the cents place right here. What do? We go one place to the right of this. We go one place to the right. If that number is 5 or greater, that number is 5 or greater, round up. If that number is 4 or less, leave the number alone. Well, how about it? Here's the cents place. We go one place beyond the cents place. This number is 5 or greater, so we're going to round up. Our answer, $69.48. And by the way, I think that my lab or my math lab supplies the dollar sign. We don't have to supply that. Okay, everybody. This was a pretty good session. Nice short session. I think tomorrow I will include something about the graph questions that they asked. So I'll send you another video out tomorrow on that. They gave us some graphs and standard deviation and so forth and so on, and they want us to interpret those things. So I'll do an example tomorrow where they're just asking us about the graphs and we have to interpret.